Let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Commander. Jackson McConnell stood on the deck of the USS Constellation, watching the Pacific horizon blur into dusk. At 42, he carried himself with the quiet authority of a man who'd spent 20 years in the Navy, the last 8 commanding SEAL Team 6 operations that never made the news. His face was weathered but kind, with steel-gray eyes that could assess a threat in seconds or comfort his daughters with a single glance. "Commander, satellite intel confirms the package is secure." Vincent Bond approached, his tactical vest still dusty from their training exercise. Vincent had been Jackson's right hand for 6 years, a man who could breach a compound or calculate trajectory angles with equal precision. Jackson nodded, rolling his shoulders to release the day's tension. "Good work. Tell the team to stand down. We ship out in 72 hours. Any word from home?" Vincent asked, knowing Jackson's wife Serena and their daughters were his anchor. Serena sent photos of Laurel's gymnastics meet. She placed third on beam. Pride flickered across Jackson's face. His 16-year-old daughter had inherited his discipline and her mother's grace. And Aurora's science project apparently involved setting something on fire, so she's grounded. Vincent laughed. Sounds about right for a 12-year-old. What Jackson didn't mention was the gnawing feeling that had followed him all day, the instinct that kept him alive through a dozen classified missions. Something felt wrong. He'd learned never to ignore that sensation. The feeling proved prophetic when his phone rang at 2,147 hours. Laurel's name lit up the screen. Odd. She knew his schedule, knew not to call during operations unless it was urgent. "Hey, sweetheart." The sound that came through stopped his heart. Sobbing. Desperate. Broken sobbing from his daughter, who never cried, who'd once broken her arm and simply asked him to drive her to the hospital. "Dad." Her voice cracked. "Dad, I need you." Jackson's entire body went rigid. Vincent noticed immediately, his hand moving instinctively toward his sidearm. "Laurel, baby, breathe. Tell me what happened." His voice remained steady, but his mind was already calculating. 23 hours to get home if he left immediately. 18 if he pulled strings. "Coach Schmidt, during practice today." She sucked in a shuddering breath. "He kept adjusting my form, but his hands. Dad, he touched me. My chest, He said it was necessary for proper technique, but I know it wasn't. I felt sick." The world narrowed to a pinpoint. Jackson's jaw clenched so hard his molars ached. "Did you tell anyone?" "I went straight to Principal Schmidt after practice. I told him everything." Hope crept into her voice, then shattered. "He laughed, Dad. He said Coach Pierre is his brother, that I must have misunderstood, that nothing will happen. He said if I spread lies about his family, he'd make sure I never got into a good college." Jackson closed his eyes, fighting the rage that threatened to consume him. When he spoke, his voice was arctic. "Laurel, listen to me very carefully. You did the right thing telling me. You did nothing wrong. Do you understand?" "Why, yes. I need you to write down everything that happened. Every detail. Don't leave anything out. Can you do that for me?" "Okay." "Is Mom home?" "She's at her book club meeting. She'll be back in an hour. Call her now. Tell her what you told me. Do not go to school tomorrow. Lock the doors, set the alarm. I'm coming home. Dad, I'm scared." "I know, baby. I know. But you're safe now. Because Dad's coming, and I'm going to fix this. I promise you." When he ended the call, Jackson stood motionless for exactly 5 seconds, processing, compartmentalizing. Then he turned to Vincent with eyes that had gone completely cold. "Get Patrick and Dalton. Conference room in 10 minutes. We have a situation." Chapter 2. The Investigation. By 0600 the next morning, Jackson was walking through his front door in Coronado, California. Serena met him in the hallway, her auburn hair disheveled, eyes red from crying. They'd met 15 years ago when she was a trauma surgeon at Balboa Naval Hospital. She understood the darkness he'd seen, the things he couldn't talk about, and she knew the look in his eyes now. "She's still sleeping," Serena whispered, falling into his arms. "Jackson, I feel like I failed her. I should have noticed something was wrong." "Stop." He held her tight. "This is not on you or her. This is on them." They sat at the kitchen table as dawn broke through the windows. Serena poured coffee neither of them would drink. "I made some calls last night," she said quietly. "Rachel Pennington, you remember her, the pediatric specialist? She said there have been rumors about Pierre Schmidt for 2 years. Girls transferring schools, parents who tried to complain but got nowhere." Jackson's fist clenched around his mug. The principal shut it down. Worse. I called Linda Whitaker. She's on the PDA. She said the Schmidt brothers are untouchable. Their father, Leslie Schmidt, is some big real estate developer who's rebuilt half the commercial district. He sits on the school board, donates to every city council campaign, owns the local newspaper. Of course he does. Jackson's voice was flat, emotionless. That was when he was most dangerous. What are you going to do? He met her eyes. What I do best. But I need to be smart about this. If I go in hot, they'll use their connections to bury it. I need evidence. I need to understand the full scope of their operation. Operation? Serena frowned. This isn't just one predator and his enabling brother. This is a system. They've been doing this for 2 years, probably longer. That means there are other victims, other witnesses. And if Daddy's money is protecting them, there are probably other people involved. School board members looking the other way. Maybe local cops. At 0800, Laurel emerged from her room, pale and exhausted. Jackson stood and opened his arms. She ran into them like she was 6 years old again. I wrote everything down, she mumbled against his chest. 6 pages. You're so brave, sweetheart. He kissed the top of her head. And I need you to be brave a little longer. I need to ask you some questions. They sat in the living room. Aurora, his younger daughter, was at a friend's house. Serena had thought it best to keep her away from the immediate crisis. How long has Pierre Schmidt been your coach? Jackson asked gently. Since September. About 2 months. Did he ever make you uncomfortable before yesterday? Laurel bit her lip. He always stared. At all of us. And he'd make comments about our bodies, but he'd say it was about athletic performance. Like, your hips are developing nicely. That'll help your vault, or you're filling out. We'll need to adjust your bar routine. It felt weird, but he's a coach, you know. Jackson's jaw tightened. Were there other girls on the team who seemed uncomfortable around him? Josie Heath. She's 17, a senior. She quit the team 3 weeks ago, said she was focusing on college applications, but... Laurel looked down. She seemed really upset. And Nadine Osborne. She's 15. She's been missing a lot of practices lately. Serena was taking notes. Do you know how to reach them? I have their numbers. Jackson leaned forward. Laurel, when you told Principal Schmidt what happened, was anyone else there? His secretary, Mrs. Peggy Herring. She was in the office when I came in. She looked uncomfortable when I started talking, and the principal asked her to leave. Smart. No witnesses. Jackson stood and paced. Okay, here's what's going to happen. Laurel, you're not going back to that school. Mom's going to homeschool you until we sort this out. But Dad, my friends, will understand. And if they don't, they're not your friends. His voice softened. I know this isn't fair. I know you shouldn't have to hide. But right now, your safety is what matters. Can you trust me on this? She nodded reluctantly. Good. Now, I need you to reach out to Josie and Nadine. Tell them your dad wants to talk to them. Tell them it's safe. Can you do that? Yes. After Laurel went to call her teammates, Serena pulled Jackson aside. What's your plan? Vincent, Patrick, and Dalton are flying in this afternoon. We're going to do what we do best: reconnaissance, intelligence gathering, target assessment. He saw her expression. I'm not going to kill anyone, Serena, but I am going to destroy them. By 1400 hours, Jackson's team had assembled in his home office. Vincent Bond, Patrick Frederick, and Dalton Key sat around the desk, laptops open, already pulling data. Okay, Patrick said, his fingers flying across the keyboard. Pierre Schmidt, age 38. Bachelor's degree in physical education from San Diego State. Coaching certification. He's been at Ocean View High for 3 years. Before that, he was at a private school in Sacramento for 2 years. Left suddenly, no public reason given. Find out why, Jackson ordered. Dalton, their intelligence specialist, pulled up property records. Lon Schmidt, age 42, principal of Ocean View High for 5 years. Before that, assistant principal at 2 other schools. And here's Daddy Dearest, Leslie Schmidt, 67, owner of Schmidt Development Corporation. Net worth estimated at $40 million. Owns 17 commercial properties in the area. Sits on 4 boards, including Ocean View School District. Political donations? Jackson asked. Oh, this is beautiful, Vincent muttered, scrolling through public records. Leslie Schmidt has donated to every city council member, the mayor, 3 county supervisors, and both judges in the municipal court. We're talking 6 figures over the past decade. He's bought the entire system, Jackson said quietly. Patrick looked up. Boss, I found something. Pierre Schmidt's last school in Sacramento, there was a lawsuit filed by parents. Sexual misconduct allegations. It was settled out of court for an undisclosed amount, and the records were sealed. How many victims? 3 girls, ages 14 to 16. The room went silent. They moved him here, Serena said from the doorway. She'd been listening. They paid off those families, sealed the records, and moved him somewhere new where no one would know. Jackson's voice was ice. They've done this before. They have a system. Daddy's money makes problems disappear. His phone buzzed. A text from Laurel. Josie wants to talk to you. Can you meet her at Pacific Grounds coffee shop at 4 p.m.? She's scared to come to the house. Jackson typed back, I'll be there. He looked at his team. We're going to need more than testimony. We need documentation, financial records, communication between the Schmidt brothers showing conspiracy. We need to prove this is systematic, institutional. And we need to do it in a way that they can't wriggle out of with their lawyers and their money. Rules of engagement? Dalton asked. Jackson smiled, and it was not a pleasant smile. We're not on a military op. We're private citizens gathering evidence of crimes against children. So technically, there are rules. He paused. But I don't plan on following them very closely. Chapter 3. The Network. Pacific Grounds was a small coffee shop 3 blocks from the beach, filled with college students and remote workers. Jackson arrived 15 minutes early, scanning the exits, noting the security cameras, assessing potential threats. Old habits. Josie Heath arrived at 15:55, clutching her backpack like a life preserver. She was tall, athletic, with auburn hair pulled back in a severe ponytail. Her eyes were older than 17. Mr. McConnell? She approached hesitantly. Josie, thank you for coming. He gestured to a corner table, away from other patrons. Can I get you something to drink? I'm okay. They sat. Jackson kept his voice gentle, non-threatening. Laurel told me you quit the gymnastics team recently. Josie's hands trembled. I can't. I don't know if I can talk about this. You can. And you're safe. I give you my word. Something in his tone, perhaps the absolute certainty, made her meet his eyes. Coach Schmidt started touching me inappropriately in August, she whispered. At first, it was like what happened to Laurel. Adjustments. His hands would linger. He'd press against me. Then it got worse. Worse how? Tears streamed down her face. In September, he asked me to stay after practice for private coaching. He said I had real potential, could get a college scholarship. My parents can't afford college, so I stayed. She wiped her eyes. He locked the gym doors. He said he needed to assess my flexibility, and his hands were everywhere. Under my leotard. He kissed me. I pushed him away and ran out. Jackson's fists clenched beneath the table, but his expression remained calm. Did you tell anyone? I told my mom. She called Principal Schmidt the next day, demanded a meeting. The principal said I was making it up, that I was obviously attracted to the coach and fabricating stories when he didn't reciprocate. He said if we pursued it, he'd recommend I be expelled for making false allegations against a teacher. What did your mom do? We can't afford a lawyer. My dad's deployed in Afghanistan, and my mom works 2 jobs. She told me to quit the team and stay away from him. Josie's voice broke. She said sometimes you have to choose your battles. But I feel like I abandoned the other girls. You didn't abandon anyone. You were failed by every adult who should have protected you. Jackson leaned forward. How would you feel about helping me make sure this never happens to another girl? How? By telling your story to people who'll actually listen. But I need to be honest with you. It's going to be hard. They're going to try to discredit you, scare you. The Schmidt family has money and power. Josie sat up straighter. I don't care anymore. I'm tired of being scared. What do you need me to do? For the next hour, Josie provided detailed testimony. Jackson recorded everything with her permission. When she left, she looked lighter somehow, as if speaking the truth had released a weight. At 1800, Jackson met with Nadine Osborne and her mother, Marion Osborne, at his home. Nadine was 15, small and quiet, with dark circles under her eyes. Marion was a single mother who worked as a nurse at Sharp Hospital. Nadine's story was similar but worse. Pierre Schmidt had been grooming her for months, isolating her from the team, convincing her she was special. 2 weeks ago, he'd assaulted her in the equipment storage room. I filed a police report, Marion said, her voice shaking with fury. Detective Carol Gray took our statement, said he'd investigate. That was 12 days ago. We haven't heard a word. When I called for an update, I got transferred 3 times and then told the case was still under review. Jackson exchanged glances with Vincent, who was taking notes. Mrs. Osborne, do you mind if I look into why your case is stalled? Please. I'll try anything at this point. After they left, the team reconvened. I'll handle the police angle, Vincent said. I've got a contact at NCIS who can pull strings, find out if Detective Gray is dirty or just incompetent. Patrick looked up from his laptop. Boss, I've been digging into school board meeting minutes for the past 3 years. There have been 6 complaints filed against Pierre Schmidt. All of them disappeared. No investigations, no disciplinary action, nothing. Who dismissed them? The complaints go through the principal first. If he deems them credible, they go to the district superintendent, then the school board. But Lon Schmidt marked every single one as unsubstantiated or resolved informally. He's the gatekeeper, Jackson said. He makes sure nothing reaches anyone who might actually act on it. Dalton pulled up a financial document. I found something interesting. Leslie Schmidt made a $50,000 donation to the school district's discretionary fund last year. That money can be used for anything, building repairs, equipment, bonuses. And guess who approves how it's spent? The principal, Serena said. Bingo. Lon Schmidt basically gets $50,000 a year to make sure his brother stays employed and protected. Jackson paced, thinking. So we have a system. Pierre assaults students. Any complaints go to Lon, who buries them. If anyone escalates beyond the school, Daddy's political connections and money make it disappear. The police drag their feet. The victims give up. They've perfected it. How do we break it? Patrick asked. We don't break one link. We break all of them at once. Jackson turned to his team. We need evidence on all 3 Schmidt men. Pierre's pattern of assault. Lon's systematic cover-up. Leslie's bribery and corruption. We need financial records, emails, testimony. And we need it fast before they realize we're coming. Vincent grinned. When do we start? Tonight. At 0200, while the Schmidt brothers slept, Jackson's team went to work. Patrick hacked into the school district's email server. Not officially legal, but Jackson had stopped caring about technicalities. Within hours, they had damning evidence. Emails between Lon and Leslie discussing handling complaints, messages where Lon warned Pierre about being more careful, financial records showing payments to lawyers and families. Dalton traced those payments. 3 families over the past 4 years had received sudden deposits. $25,000, $30,000, $40,000, within weeks of filing complaints. Hush money. Vincent's contact at NCIS confirmed that Detective Carol Gray had received a $10,000 consulting fee from Schmidt Development Corporation 3 months ago. The police investigation into Nadine's assault had been deliberately stalled. They've been doing this for at least 4 years, Jackson said at dawn, looking at the evidence spread across his dining table. Maybe longer. God knows how many victims. What's the play? Vincent asked. Jackson was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled, a cold, predatory smile. We're going to walk into that school. We're going to present all of this evidence to Pierre and Lon Schmidt. And we're going to watch them beg the police to arrest them. Why would they do that? Dalton asked, confused. Because, Jackson said softly, by the time we're done, going to jail will seem like the safest option available to them. Chapter 4, Pressure Points. Monday morning, 0730. Jackson stood outside Ocean View High School, watching students filter through the gates. Laurel should have been among them, laughing with friends, worried about algebra tests and college applications. Instead, she was home, traumatized, her childhood stolen by a predator in a position of trust. That ended today. Vincent, Patrick, and Dalton flanked him, all in civilian clothes but moving with unmistakable military precision. They'd spent the weekend perfecting the plan, identifying every vulnerability in the Schmidt operation. Phase 1. Vincent asked quietly. Execute. Patrick peeled off toward the administrative building while the rest approached the main entrance. But Jackson wasn't going to storm in yet. That would come later. First, he needed to apply pressure. At 0800, Leslie Schmidt arrived at his downtown office in his black Mercedes. He was a large man, expensive suit, the kind of person who'd spent decades convincing himself his money made him untouchable. He didn't notice the 4 men who followed him into the elevator. When the elevator doors closed, Jackson pressed the emergency stop button. What the? Leslie turned, irritation morphing to alarm when he saw their faces. Mr. Schmidt, my name is Jackson McConnell. His voice was conversational, almost friendly. My daughter attends Ocean View High. Or she did, until your son assaulted her on Thursday. Leslie's face went red. I don't know who you think you are, but if you don't start this elevator right now. I'm a commander in the United States Navy. I've spent 20 years hunting men significantly more dangerous than you. Jackson stepped closer. And I know everything. Every victim. Every payoff. Every email between you and your son's coordinating cover-ups. Every bribe to police and officials. The color drained from Leslie's face. Here's what's going to happen, Jackson continued. You're going to go to your office. You're going to sit at your desk. And you're going to think about what's coming. Because by lunchtime today, your entire empire is going to collapse. And there's nothing you can do to stop it. He pressed the button. The elevator resumed. When the doors opened on Leslie's floor, the old man stumbled out, looking back at Jackson with pure terror. See you soon, Jackson said pleasantly. At 0830, Lon Schmidt sat in his principal's office, reviewing the day's schedule. His secretary, Peggy Herring, knocked timidly. Mr. Schmidt, there are some men here to see you. They don't have an appointment. The door opened. Jackson walked in, followed by Vincent and Dalton. Lon stood quickly, his politician's smile automatic. Gentlemen, if you need to schedule a meeting, you'll need to. Sit down, Lon. Jackson's voice wasn't loud, but it carried absolute authority. Lon sat. My name is Jackson McConnell. On Thursday, your brother Pierre sexually assaulted my 16-year-old daughter. When she reported it to you, you threatened her. Jackson placed a folder on the desk. That folder contains testimony from 4 victims. It also contains emails proving you've been systematically burying complaints for years. Financial records showing your father's bribes to school board members and police. Communications between you and Pierre discussing how to avoid legal complications. Lon's hands trembled. You can't prove any of this. Those are privileged. Privilege? Vincent laughed darkly. We're way past privilege, Principal. We're into felony conspiracy territory. Where's Pierre? Jackson asked. I don't know. He called in sick today. He ran. Dalton checked his phone. Patrick just confirmed. Pierre's car is gone from his apartment. He cleared out this morning. Jackson's jaw clenched. When did you warn him? I didn't. Vincent slammed his palm on the desk, making Lon jump. Don't lie. When did you tell your brother we were coming? Yesterday evening, Lon whispered. He called me. Panicked, said someone had broken into the school server, that we had to get out. I told him to run, to hide. Where is he? Jackson leaned over the desk, his face inches from Lon's. I don't know. He said he was going somewhere safe, somewhere you'd never find him. Jackson's phone rang. Patrick. Boss, you need to see this. I'm in the school's server room. I found something. In a windowless room filled with humming servers, Patrick pointed to his laptop screen. The school's surveillance system. I hacked it to map coverage. Look at the gymnasium cameras. Jackson watched footage from last week. Pierre Schmidt with students, his hands lingering too long, adjusting positions unnecessarily. Then Patrick pulled up another angle, the equipment room. This is from 2 weeks ago. Watch the timestamp. The footage showed Pierre leading a young girl, Nadine Osborne, into the storage room. 15 minutes later, she emerged crying, clothes disheveled. Pierre followed, adjusting his shirt, looking around to make sure no one saw. He recorded his own crime, Vincent said in disbelief. Not intentionally. The school's security system auto-saves everything. Lon probably didn't even know these cameras existed. Patrick pulled up more files. There's footage going back 2 years. Multiple victims. This is enough evidence to put Pierre away for decades. Download everything, Jackson ordered. Triple redundancy. Cloud, external drives, email it to our lawyers. I want this preserved before anyone can delete it. He turned to Dalton. Find Pierre. Use every resource we have. Traffic cameras, credit card records, cell phone pings. I want his location within the hour. Dalton was already typing. On it. Jackson looked at Vincent. Time to see the police. At 1000, Jackson walked into the Coronado Police Department with Vincent. They asked for Detective Carol Gray. Gray was a heavy-set man in his 50s, thinning hair, coffee-stained tie. He looked annoyed at the interruption. Detective Gray, my name is Jackson McConnell. I'm here about the case filed by Marion Osborne regarding her daughter Nadine's assault. Gray's expression soured. That case is still under investigation. That case has been deliberately stalled for 12 days. Jackson placed another folder on Gray's desk. That's a record of the $10,000 payment you received from Schmidt Development Corporation. It also includes your phone records showing 7 calls with Leslie Schmidt in the past 2 weeks, and a memo you sent to the district attorney recommending they decline prosecution due to insufficient evidence. Gray's face went pale. You can't have access to my financial records. That's illegal. So is taking bribes to obstruct justice. Vincent leaned against the wall, arms crossed. So is conspiracy to protect a child predator. I want my lawyer. You're going to need several. Jackson pulled out his phone, dialing. Hello, is this Internal Affairs? Yes, I'd like to report a police officer taking bribes. His name is Carol Gray. I'll wait. Gray lunged for the phone, but Vincent intercepted him with ease, pushing him back into his chair. Stay seated, detective. Within 20 minutes, 2 Internal Affairs officers arrived. Within 30, Gray was in handcuffs, his career over, his pension gone, his freedom uncertain. Jackson and Vincent walked out of the station. That's 2 down, Vincent said. Pierre's running. Lawn's about to crumble, Gray's arrested, and Daddy Schmidt is probably having a heart attack right about now. Jackson checked his phone. A text from Dalton. Found him. Sending coordinates. 3 to go, Jackson said. Let's finish this. Chapter 5, The Hunt. Pierre Schmidt had made a mistake that afternoon. He'd used his credit card at a gas station in Escondido, 40 miles northeast of San Diego. Dalton traced the transaction and triangulated his cell phone signal. He's at a motel off I-15, Dalton reported. The Desert Sun Inn. Room 23. His car is in the lot. Jackson studied the satellite image on Dalton's tablet. The motel was a dive, 12 rooms, poorly lit parking lot, single story. 1 exit, minimal surveillance. He's trapped himself, Vincent observed. That place has nowhere to run. Scared people make stupid choices, Jackson said. Let's go. They arrived at 1445, 3 vehicles, blocking both exits. Jackson approached room 23 alone, knocked firmly. Pierre Schmidt, open the door. Silence. I know you're in there. I know you're scared. But running makes it worse. The door cracked open. Pierre stood there, disheveled, eyes red. At 38, he was fit, attractive in a conventional way, the kind of person parents trusted with their children. That made Jackson's rage burn hotter. What do you want? Pierre's voice shook. I want you to understand something, Jackson said quietly. You assaulted my daughter. You've assaulted at least 7 other girls that we know of. You've destroyed childhoods, stolen innocence, left trauma that will last lifetimes. And your family's money has let you get away with it. Until now. I didn't. I never. Those girls misunderstood. Jackson held up his phone, showing surveillance footage. Pierre went white. We have everything. 2 years of video. Testimony from victims. Financial records of your father's payoffs. Emails between you and your brother. It's over, Pierre. Pierre's legs gave out. He slumped against the doorframe. What? What are you going to do to me? That depends on what you do next. Jackson stepped into the room. Here's your choice. You can run again. Try to hide. Maybe make it to Mexico or somewhere you think you'll be safe. But I promise you, I will find you. And when I do, no one will ever find you again. Do you understand what I'm telling you? Pierre nodded, terrified. Or, you can come with me right now. You can confess everything to the police. You can plead guilty, spare those girls from having to testify in court, spare them from your lawyers trying to tear them apart. You can show one shred of decency after years of being a monster. And maybe, the justice system will show you the mercy you never showed those children. Pierre was sobbing now. I can't go to prison. I won't survive prison. They'll kill me. Yes, they probably will. Jackson's voice was ice. Prisoners don't like child predators. But that's the consequence of your choices. You took innocence. You caused suffering. Now you pay the price. Please. I'm giving you 60 seconds to decide. Run, and I hunt you. Turn yourself in, and you live long enough to see a courtroom. Choose. Pierre covered his face with his hands, shoulders shaking. I'll confess. I'll confess to everything. Just please, don't hurt me. I'm not going to touch you. I don't need to. The system is going to destroy you. Jackson called Detective Carson Reeves from the San Diego County Sheriff's Department. An officer Dalton had verified wasn't on Schmidt's payroll. Detective Reeves? Jackson McConnell. I have Pierre Schmidt here, and he's ready to confess to multiple counts of sexual assault of minors. Can you send units to the Desert Sun Inn in Escondido? Within 30 minutes, 3 patrol cars arrived. Pierre was read his rights, cuffed, and placed in the back of a cruiser. As they drove away, he looked back at Jackson through the window, his face a mask of defeat. That's 3, Vincent said. Lon and Leslie are next. At 16:30, Jackson returned to Ocean View High School. News of Pierre's arrest had already spread. Local reporters were gathering outside, parents arriving to pull their children from school. Lon Schmidt was in his office, on the phone with a lawyer, when Jackson walked in. I'll call you back, Lon said, hanging up. He looked at Jackson with naked fear. Pierre was arrested. He confessed. To everything. Every victim, every assault, your role in covering it up, your father's bribes. It's all on record now. Lon sank into his chair. I want immunity. I'll testify against my father and brother if I get immunity. You're not getting immunity. Jackson sat across from him. You protected a predator. You threatened victims. You took money to destroy evidence. You're going to prison. You can't prove I took money. Jackson placed a USB drive on the desk. That contains every financial transaction between you and your father for the past 5 years, including the $50,000 annual donations that coincidentally match the amount of complaints you buried. It also contains testimony from Peggy Herring, your secretary. She kept records of every victim who came forward, every complaint you dismissed. She's been documenting everything for 2 years, waiting for someone to finally do something. Lon stared at the USB drive like it was a live grenade. Peggy kept records? She did. Because unlike you, she has a conscience. Jackson stood. The police will be here in 10 minutes. You can wait here, or you can run like your brother did. But either way, you're done. Lon's hands trembled as he reached for his phone. I'm calling my lawyer. Good idea. You're going to need one. Jackson left the office, passing Peggy Herring in the hallway. The elderly secretary looked at him with gratitude and sorrow. Thank you, she whispered. I tried to help those girls, but no one would listen. You helped them by keeping records. You gave us the evidence we needed. You did the right thing. Tears rolled down her face. It wasn't enough. It is now. At 1800, Jackson arrived at Leslie Schmidt's office downtown. The old man sat behind his desk, looking smaller than he had that morning. Your sons are in custody, Jackson said, walking in without knocking. Pierre confessed. Lon's been arrested. Detective Gray is cooperating with internal affairs to save himself. Your network is collapsing. Leslie glared at him with impotent rage. You have no idea what you've done. I have lawyers. I have judges in my pocket. I have connections. Had, Jackson corrected. Past tense. Because every official you bribed is about to be investigated. Every payoff is going to be exposed. The FBI's public corruption unit is already opening cases. You didn't just protect a child predator, Leslie. You corrupted an entire system. And that's federal. The old man's face went gray. The FBI? Did you think we'd stop at local police? Vincent stepped into the office behind Jackson. We sent everything to the FBI, the state attorney general, and the media. By tomorrow morning, your name will be on every news channel. Schmidt Development Corporation is finished. Your properties will be seized as proceeds of crime. Your wealth, your power, your legacy, all gone. Leslie stood, trembling with fury. You self-righteous bastard. You think you're some kind of hero? You're just a thug with a uniform. Jackson moved so fast Leslie barely saw it. Suddenly, the old man was slammed against the wall, Jackson's forearm across his throat. Listen very carefully, Jackson said, his voice deadly quiet. You enabled your son to rape children. You paid off families to keep quiet. You corrupted officials, destroyed evidence, and made yourself rich while innocent girls suffered. I'm not a hero. I'm a father. And if the law doesn't put you away for the rest of your miserable life, I will make sure you understand the consequences of your actions in ways the courts can't. He released Leslie, who slumped to the floor, gasping. The police are outside. You're under arrest. I suggest you cooperate, because it's the last mercy you'll ever receive. Jackson walked out, leaving Leslie Schmidt broken and defeated on the floor of his own office. Chapter 6. Collateral Damage. That evening, Jackson returned home to find Serena and his daughters in the living room, watching the news. Every channel carried the story. Prominent real estate developer and sons arrested in child sexual abuse cover-up. Laurel looked up when he entered, tears streaming down her face. But they weren't tears of sadness. They were relief. "You did it," she whispered. "You really did it." Aurora, his 12-year-old, ran to him. "Dad, you're like a superhero." "No, sweetheart. I'm just a dad who loves his daughters." He held them both. "How are you feeling, Laurel?" "Scared. Relieved. Angry. I don't know." She pulled back, looking at him. "The news said there were other victims." "How many?" "7 that we've confirmed. Maybe more will come forward now." "I want to meet them," Laurel said suddenly. "I want them to know they're not alone." Serena put a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure. This happened to all of us. We should support each other." Jackson felt pride swell in his chest. His daughter's strength, her empathy even in trauma, that was real courage. "We'll arrange it," he said. Over the next 2 days, the full scope of the Schmidt corruption network emerged. 12 more victims came forward, some as young as 13, spanning Pierre's teaching career across 3 schools. The Sacramento lawsuit that had been sealed was reopened. Federal prosecutors announced charges against Leslie Schmidt for bribery, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy. Lon faced charges of official misconduct, evidence tampering, and being an accessory to assault. Pierre's confession was detailed and damning. In exchange for a life sentence instead of multiple consecutive sentences, he provided information on every assault, every family his father had paid off, every official who'd looked the other way. But on Wednesday afternoon, Jackson received a call from District Attorney Carlene Shea. "Commander McConnell, we have a problem." Jackson's stomach tightened. "What kind of problem?" "Leslie Schmidt posted bail this morning. $2 million. His lawyer argued he wasn't a flight risk." "That's insane." "He's absolutely a flight risk." "I know, but Judge Ken Pena approved it." "Pena's been on Schmidt's payroll for years. We're investigating him too, but right now he's still on the bench." Jackson felt cold rage building. "Where is Leslie now?" "We don't know. He posted bail at 0800 and disappeared. His lawyer claims he's at an undisclosed location for his safety. We've issued an ankle monitor order, but he hasn't checked in." "You let him run." "Commander, I understand your frustration." "Do you?" "Because a man who enabled child rape is now free, and my family is at risk." Jackson hung up. Vincent, who'd been listening, was already on his laptop. "I'll find him." "No," Jackson said quietly. "I'll find him. You track down Judge Pena. I want to know if he's violating his bail conditions. I want to know if he's planning to flee the country. I want to know everything." It took 6 hours, but Dalton traced Leslie Schmidt to a private airfield outside San Diego. He'd chartered a plane scheduled to leave at 2200, destination, Costa Rica. "He's running," Dalton confirmed. "And Costa Rica doesn't have an extradition treaty with the U.S. for these charges." Jackson looked at his team. "If he gets on that plane, he's gone. Federal warrants take time. By the time they issue international alerts, he'll be hidden." "What do you want to do?" Vincent asked. Jackson checked his watch. 2045. They had 15 minutes. "We're going to stop him. Permanently." Chapter 7. The Airfield. The private airfield was small, poorly lit, consisting of a single runway, a hangar, and a modest terminal building. Leslie Schmidt's Mercedes was parked near a Cessna Citation, its engines already warming up. Jackson's team arrived in 2 vehicles, lights off, parking in the shadows beyond the fence line. For security cameras, Dalton noted, scanning with thermal imaging. 1 guard at the terminal. Pilot and co-pilot on the plane. No sign of Leslie yet. "He's probably in the terminal, filing flight plans," Patrick said. Jackson checked his sidearm, a SIG Sauer P226, his personal weapon, not military issue. What he was about to do had nothing to do with the Navy. "Vincent, take the guard down quietly." "Patrick, cut the cameras." "Dalton, disable the plane." "I'll handle Leslie." "What about witnesses?" Vincent asked. "We are witnesses. This is a citizen's arrest of a fugitive violating bail conditions. They moved like ghosts through the darkness, years of training making them invisible." Vincent reached the guard first, a board security contractor playing on his phone, and rendered him unconscious with a chokehold. Patrick scrambled the security camera feeds. Dalton slipped under the Cessna and severed critical hydraulic lines. Jackson entered the terminal through a side door. Leslie Schmidt sat in the small waiting area, a leather bag at his feet, talking on his phone. He looked up when he heard footsteps, and his face went white. "I'll call you back," he said, ending the call. "Going somewhere?" Jackson asked. "I'm perfectly within my rights to travel while out on bail. Not to a non-extradition country with $2 million in cash." Jackson gestured to the bag. "That's called fleeing justice." Leslie stood, trying to maintain his arrogance. "You can't stop me. I posted bail legally. You violated your bail conditions. You didn't check in with your monitoring officer. You didn't disclose your travel plans. And you're attempting to leave the country before trial." Jackson pulled out his phone. "I'm calling the FBI right now." Leslie's eyes darted to the door. He was calculating, deciding if he could run. "Don't," Jackson said quietly. "You won't make it 3 steps." "What do you want from me?" Leslie shouted. "You've destroyed everything. My business, my reputation, my family. Your sons destroyed your family when they assaulted children. You destroyed everything when you helped them. This is consequence, Leslie. This is accountability. Those girls were nothing." Leslie's facade cracked completely. "They were nobody. My son gave them attention, made them feel special." Jackson's fist connected with Leslie's jaw before the old man could finish the sentence. Leslie crumpled, blood pouring from his mouth. "They were children," Jackson said, standing over him. "They had names, futures, dreams. Your son took that from them, and you helped him do it. You don't get to minimize their suffering." Leslie spat blood. "You're a hypocrite. You act like you're righteous, but you're just as violent as anyone. I never hurt an innocent person. I've never enabled evil. I've spent my life fighting people like you." Jackson hauled Leslie to his feet. "And I'm very good at it." The FBI arrived 20 minutes later. Jackson had called them the moment he'd confirmed Leslie's flight plans. They arrested Leslie for bail violation, flight risk, and attempting to leave the jurisdiction. His bail was revoked. This time, there would be no judge to buy off, no strings to pull. As federal agents led Leslie away in handcuffs, the old man looked back at Jackson with pure hatred. "You'll regret this," he hissed. Jackson smiled. "No, I won't. But you will. Every single day in prison, you'll regret the choices you made. And that's justice." Chapter 8. The Trial. 3 months later, the trials began. Pierre Schmidt was sentenced to 25 years to life for multiple counts of sexual assault of a minor. The judge, after hearing victim impact statements, recommended he never be eligible for parole. Lon Schmidt received 12 years for conspiracy, evidence tampering, and obstruction of justice. His teaching certification was revoked, his pension forfeited. Detective Carol Gray pleaded guilty to accepting bribes and received 8 years. He was expelled from the police force and lost all benefits. Judge Ken Pena was impeached and removed from the bench, facing his own criminal trial for corruption. Leslie Schmidt's trial was the longest. Federal prosecutors brought charges for bribery, money laundering, conspiracy to obstruct justice, witness tampering, and RICO violations, arguing his real estate business was essentially a criminal enterprise. Jackson attended every day of the trial, sitting in the gallery with Laurel, Serena, and the other victims and their families. The prosecution presented the emails, the financial records, the testimony. Patrick's hacked files were inadmissible, but they provided a roadmap for legal subpoenas that yielded the same evidence. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty on all counts. Leslie Schmidt was sentenced to 35 years in federal prison. At 67, it was a life sentence. When the verdict was read, Laurel squeezed Jackson's hand. "It's really over," she whispered. "It's over," he confirmed. But the real victory came after the trial, when the victims gathered at the McConnell home for dinner. Josie, Nadine, Laurel, and 4 other girls. Aurora insisted on cooking, with Serena's help. They ate, they talked, they cried, they laughed. "I've been in therapy," Nadine said quietly. "My counselor says it's going to take time, but I'm not defined by what happened to me." "None of us are," Josie agreed. "What defines us is how we fought back." Laurel looked at her father across the table. "We fought back because you showed us we could. You made us believe we deserved justice." Jackson felt his throat tighten. "You always deserved justice. I just made sure you got it." Later, after the girls had left and Aurora was in bed, Serena and Jackson sat on their back patio under the stars. "You know the Navy's investigating your methods," Serena said. "The hacking, the threats, the confrontations, it's not exactly protocol." "I know." Jackson sipped his coffee. "I'll face whatever consequences come." But I'd do it again. I know you would. That's what makes you a good father. She leaned against him. And a dangerous enemy. Only to people who deserve it. The next week, Jackson received a call from Naval Command. He was officially reprimanded for conduct unbecoming and unauthorized use of military resources. His security clearance was suspended pending review. But he was also quietly commended by 3 different admirals who had daughters of their own. One sent a bottle of 25-year-old scotch with a note, Semper Fi. Well done. Jackson McConnell returned to duty 3 months later, his clearance restored, his reputation among his peers enhanced rather than diminished. People knew you could threaten a Navy SEAL's life, but you didn't threaten his family. Chapter 9, Aftermath. 2 years later, Jackson stood on the same high school campus, now renamed Ocean View Academy after a complete administrative overhaul, watching Laurel at her gymnastics meet. She'd returned to the team after extensive therapy, determined not to let Pierre Schmidt steal her love of the sport. Now 18, she was competing for the last time before heading to college on a full athletic scholarship. As she executed a flawless dismount from the uneven bars, the crowd erupted. Jackson cheered louder than anyone. After the meet, as they walked to the car, Laurel said, "Dad, I got accepted into the Victims Advocacy Program at UC Berkeley. I'm going to study psychology and criminal justice." Jackson stopped walking, looking at his daughter with awe. Really? What happened to me, to those other girls? It changed me. I want to help other victims. I want to make sure they have someone fighting for them. You're going to change lives, Laurel. I learned from the best. That evening, Jackson received an email from Josie Heath, now a sophomore at San Diego State. She'd started a campus organization for survivors of sexual assault, providing support and resources. Nadine Osborne had joined as well, and they were expanding to other universities. The Schmidt empire had collapsed completely. The real estate company was liquidated, the assets seized to compensate victims. The properties were sold, the money distributed. Every official who'd taken bribes faced consequences, some criminal, some merely career-ending. Pierre Schmidt was attacked and imprisoned 6 months into his sentence. He survived, but was permanently disabled. Leslie Schmidt suffered a stroke in federal custody and was transferred to a prison medical facility. Lon Schmidt became a model prisoner, teaching GED classes, claiming to have found religion. Jackson didn't care about their suffering or redemption. He cared about the girls who were now women, rebuilding their lives with strength and purpose. On a Sunday afternoon, the doorbell rang. Jackson answered to find a young woman in her 20s, nervous, clutching a manila folder. "Commander McConnell?" she asked. "My name is Rochelle Ashley. You don't know me, but I was one of Pierre Schmidt's victims. From the Sacramento school, before he moved to San Diego." Jackson's expression softened. "Come in, please." They sat in the living room. Serena brought tea. Rochelle explained that she'd been 13 when Pierre assaulted her, that her family had taken the settlement because they couldn't afford to fight. She'd spent years in therapy, struggling with guilt and shame. "When I saw the news about his arrest, about what you did for your daughter and those other girls, I realized I didn't have to be silent anymore." She opened the folder. "I kept a journal. Everything he did, everything I felt. I want to add it to the record. I want my story told." Jackson took the journal carefully. "We'll make sure it's heard. The appeals process is ongoing. New victim testimony can impact sentencing." "Thank you." Tears rolled down her face. "Thank you for believing your daughter. My parents believed me, but we didn't know how to fight back. You showed us it's possible." After Rochelle left, Jackson stood at the window, watching the sun set over the Pacific. Serena joined him, slipping her hand into his. "You okay?" "I was thinking about all the things that had to go wrong for this to happen. All the adults who failed those girls. All the systems that protected a predator instead of children. And all the things that went right," Serena added. "A daughter brave enough to tell her father. A father who believed her and fought for her. A team willing to bend rules to get justice. People who kept records, who testified, who stood up when it mattered." Jackson nodded slowly. "I spent 20 years fighting enemies overseas. Terrorists, insurgents, people who wanted to destroy our country. But the most dangerous enemies are sometimes right here at home, in positions of trust, in our schools, our institutions, our communities. And now those enemies know," Serena said, "that you don't get away with hurting children. Not while you're around." Jackson smiled, pulling his wife close. "Not while I'm around." 5 years after the trials, Jackson McConnell retired from the Navy with full honors. He opened a private investigation firm specializing in institutional abuse and corruption. His team, Vincent, Patrick, and Dalton, joined him. They took on cases no one else would touch. School districts covering up abuse, churches protecting predators, corporations silencing victims. They worked for free when families couldn't pay, funded by settlements from wealthy institutions they'd exposed. Their success rate was 100%. Because Jackson McConnell had learned a fundamental truth: evil flourishes when good people do nothing. Predators thrive when systems protect them instead of their victims. Corruption endures when consequences don't. But when a father who'd spent his life hunting monsters turned those skills toward protecting children, the monsters didn't stand a chance. Laurel McConnell graduated with honors and joined the FBI's Crimes Against Children unit. Aurora followed her sister into law enforcement, becoming a prosecutor specializing in sexual assault cases. The Schmidt name became synonymous with corruption and downfall. Their story was taught in criminal justice classes as a case study in systematic abuse and the importance of believing victims. But to Jackson, it was never about the Schmidt family. It was about his daughter, who'd called him crying, trusting him to protect her. It was about every father who'd ever felt that helpless rage at a child's suffering. It was about making sure that when innocence was stolen, there would be consequences. Always. Because Jackson McConnell was a commander, a SEAL, a warrior. But most importantly, he was a father. And nothing, no money, no power, no corrupt system, would ever stop him from protecting his daughters. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.